In the flickering glow of a street lamp on a storm-tossed night, the world seemed to contract into shadows and puddles, with the rain falling in a relentless sheet that blurred the line between sky and earth. Thick, heavy clouds rumbled above, occasionally cracking wide in a sudden burst of lightning, shaping the world into an eerie silhouette. With each clap of thunder, windows in nearby houses rattled, and the wind swept through deserted alleyways, whistling a tune of loneliness. Among the gutters, beneath the shelter of a sagging cardboard box, a small form cowered. So small, it could nearly be mistaken for a bundle of rags left out in the storm, nearly invisible against the wet, dark concrete. But this was no lump of discarded cloth. It was a puppy, trembling so fiercely that his body shuddered with every breath, his thin fur plastered against his ribs, water pooling in the shallow dips of his scrawny frame. His eyes, wide and glinting with fear, darted outwards, searching each passing footfall and distant car for hope, or perhaps for something he once called home. He didn't know how he got there. Maybe there once was a warm bed, a mother's nuzzle, the playful bite of a sibling. Perhaps there was laughter, the kind that fills the sunlight of backyard afternoons. All of that was a haze now, vanished as suddenly as the sun that afternoon, replaced by the driving rain, the biting cold, and the hunger that gnawed deeper with every passing moment. Each time a car passed, splashing water high onto the curb, the puppy whimpered and shrank back even further. He had only himself for company, and the city gave him no comfort. Yet in the house across the street, a light glowed in a window. Inside, a woman named Emily pressed her palm to the glass, staring into the torrent outside. She too felt the biting touch of loneliness tonight. It had only been a few months since her own dog Max had passed away. The ache was as familiar as the rain that used to drum against her old collie's back as they went for walks. Everything was too quiet. The sofa beside her felt emptier, the hallway echoes a little too loud. She had tried not to think about adopting again. Her heart still felt patched together, fragile as old lace, but something about this storm made her restless. She fetched her umbrella and boots, pulled a warm coat tightly around herself, and peered out into the night. As she stepped out, letting the door click behind her, her gaze swept across the shimmering river of streetlight flooding the pavement. Then, as a streak of lightning briefly lit the road, she saw movement, just a hint, beneath the cardboard box. She felt something in her chest, the ache of old grief meeting the spark of hope. She stepped carefully, each stride splashing through puddles, until she reached the edge of the road. There, huddled and soaked through, was the puppy. A mere scrap of life, so cold and small that at first it seemed impossible he could still be breathing. Emily crouched low, cooing softly, extending her palm with the gentle patience only someone who had loved and lost could truly offer. The puppy flinched at first, shrinking away from her voice, but the exhaustion in his limbs had won over the instinct to flee. His head drooped. He let out a pitiful whine. With slow, careful hands, she scooped him up, feeling the way his frail body fit neatly inside her arms, as fragile as a fallen branch. The puppy did not resist. As she lifted him, her coat became speckled with mud and fur, but she did not mind. She tucked him against her chest, sharing as much warmth as she could. She could feel him shivering, a tiny, vulnerable thing. Emily hurried back to her front door, puppy balanced carefully, feeling the weight lighten with each step. Inside, she fumbled with towels, wrapping the puppy up like a newborn, whispering reassurance as she set him on the softest spot she could find. An old pillow, warm from the radiator. Light filtered in from the kitchen, illuminating the puppy's wide, uncertain eyes as he blinked and tried to take in this strange new world. It was a world of warmth, of light, of promise. Emily found a can of soup, something mild and easy, and spooned a tiny amount into a dish, coaxing the puppy to drink. At first, he only sniffed. It took time for trust to thaw from fear. But trust, like warmth, spreads. Slowly, irresistibly. She dried him with the gentle pressure of a towel, careful of every edge and curve of his trembling body. As soon as she could, she laid out a soft fleece blanket by the heater, settling him there. Across the room, she called her neighborhood veterinarian, explaining the situation, her words hurried yet hopeful. The voice on the other end reassured her. Bring him in as soon as possible. That night, with the wind still howling outside, Emily stayed by the puppy's side. She spoke in soothing tones, humming a song she remembered from her own childhood. As the storm battered her windows, the puppy surrendered to slumber for the first time in what must have been days. Sleeping deeper with each heartbeat, his nose curled into the folds of the blanket, his paws stretching out as if grasping for the shape of a dream. Daylight crept in slowly, banishing the storm. The city, damp and gleaming, woke to the hush that follows rain. A hush of renewal and hope. In the softest blue of morning, Emily bundled up the puppy. She cradled him during the car ride to the veterinary clinic, stroking the tiny patch of white between his ears, reassuring him with words and touch. At the clinic, the staff marveled at how lucky he'd been. He was underweight, but no broken bones. There were cuts and scrapes, a stomach that roiled with hunger, but his heartbeat was strong, a testament to the stubborn fragility of life. For the first time since the storm began, Emily felt her chest lighten. The puppy would make it. They gave the puppy a name, Charlie. It was a hopeful name, born of the unlikeliest survival, chosen for no reason but that it fit, suited to his gentle, uncertain nature. At first, Charlie moved through the house warily, sticking close to walls, ducking his head as if expecting disappointment at every corner. Emily never forced him. She sat nearby with open palms and patient words. She was there when he explored. A new toy, a chewed slipper, the pale corner of sunlight that crept across the rug. Days became weeks, and trust blossomed. Hunger faded, replaced by the easy contentment of full bowls and warm laps. Charlie learned where his water dish waited and that food would always be there. He discovered the meaning of a soft voice and a slow gesture. Each day, his eyes grew bolder. He learned the language of humans, the laughter that meant playtime, the click of a leash that meant adventure outside, the quiet, gentle cadence of nighttime stories. Emily, in turn, rediscovered parts of herself that she'd thought gone with Max. She began to smile more, her home coming alive with the pitter-patter of puppy paws, the gentle chaos of play. She found delight in teaching Charlie, the simple joy of a game of fetch, the old-fashioned pleasure of watching him chase his own tail on the living room rug. With every shy wag of his tail, she felt her own heart mend, stitch by patient stitch. Neighbors came to meet Charlie, charmed by his big ears and soft brown eyes. Word spread about his rescue, a story that wrapped around the neighborhood, weaving Emily and Charlie into a tapestry of community. People left small gifts on the doorstep, a chew toy, a blanket, a homemade treat. In every gesture, hope was returned tenfold. Charlie grew stronger. His coat gleamed with health and love. No longer did he startle at every sound or flinch at sudden movement. Instead, he greeted each sunrise as an invitation, each drizzle as a possibility for adventure. Emily and Charlie took morning walks through the neighborhood parks, exploring gardens freshly washed by rain, tracing new paths beneath grand old trees. Together, they discovered the simple rhythms of happiness, the joy in small things, the warmth of shared silences, the ease of loving and being loved in return. As winter melted into spring, the first buds unfurled and the breeze turned soft and scented. Charlie, once a ghost in the storm, was now vivid, a patchwork of brown and white, strong and sure. The two of them developed habits, traditions only they shared. Quiet breakfasts by the window, drowsy afternoons reading in the sunbeam, evenings spent side by side, the city sliding into dusk beyond their garden gate. Every now and then, a storm would roll through, wind gusting, rain hammering the window panes. On those nights, Emily would settle beside Charlie on the couch, her hand resting gently on his side as thunder rumbled in the distance. And Charlie, no longer afraid, would lay his head in her lap, content in the certainty of his safety. He had come through darkness and found his way home. On the 1-year anniversary of their meeting, Emily baked a small cake. Peanut butter for Charlie, chocolate for herself. They shared it together, laughter echoing against the familiar walls. Neighbors stopped in to visit, filling the house with chatter and music. Photographs from the past year lined the mantel. Charlie as a shivering rescue. Charlie learning to leap with joy. Charlie curled contentedly on Emily's lap. Each picture told its own chapter in the story, a journey from fear to hope, from abandonment to belonging. The memory of that stormy night faded, replaced by new stories, of muddy walks and shared adventures, of quiet naps and exuberant games, of a heart that cracked open and welcomed a new friend. The cardboard box in the rain became just the beginning, the prologue to a life transformed by kindness. Charlie would never again shiver on a cold, wet pavement. He would never know hunger as more than a fleeting sensation between meals, or fear as anything more than a distant memory. In Emily's home, he had found what he had lost, a family, a place, a purpose. He had found love. Emily, too, had found herself changed. In rescuing Charlie, she had learned that healing does not mean forgetting or replacing, but growing, together, towards the light. The empty spaces in her home filled with the sounds of companionship, the ache in her chest soothed by trust gently restored. As the seasons turned, their bond only deepened. Though neither could fully speak the other's language, they understood each other in ways more profound than words, a glance, a wag, a sigh in the twilight. They had learned together how to weather storms and enjoy sunshine, how to find the extraordinary within the routine, how to transform loneliness into laughter and hope. The storm, after all, had not taken everything. In its wake, it left behind an extraordinary gift. A puppy who taught Emily what it meant to love again, and an end to both their lonely nights. And so the once-forgotten puppy, rescued from a world of rain, became the heart of a home, a beacon of hope, proof that even in the darkest of storms, the promise of shelter, belonging, and love always persists.